was 9 years old when I realized my mother didn't just dislike my grandmother, she hated her. Not in the loud, dramatic way people hate in movies, with screaming and slammed doors. No, her hatred was quiet, patient, the kind that settles into the bones of a house and never leaves. Grandma was soft. Not weak, never weak, but gentle in a way that made the world feel less sharp. She had these hands, wrinkled and spotted with age, that could mend anything, a torn dress, a scraped knee, even my father's temper when he'd had too much to drink. But my mother, she looked at Grandma like she was something stale, something taking up space. She's a burden, Mom would say, voice low, as if Grandma couldn't hear her from the next room. Eating our food, wasting our time. When is it ever going to be my turn? I didn't understand then what she meant. Grandma did everything, cooked, cleaned, held me when I cried. Mom never did those things. But one day, I came home from school and Grandma wasn't in her chair by the window, knitting like she always was. "Where's Grandma?" I asked, dropping my bag by the door. Mom didn't look up from the dishes. "She's resting." But Grandma never rested during the day. She said naps were for cats and lazy men. I walked toward the hallway, toward the basement door. It was closed. That was strange. It was always open. The basement was where Grandma kept her preserves, her quilting supplies, her old books. I reached for the handle. "Don't?" Mom's voice was a whip. I flinched, pulling my hand back. "She's sleeping," Mom said, sharper now. "You'll wake her." I nodded. But that night, after Mom thought I was in bed, I crept back to the door, pressed my ear against the wood. Silence. Then a shuffle. A cough. Grandma's cough. I knelt, peering through the keyhole. Darkness. Then a flicker of movement. A hand, pale in the dim light, reaching for something just out of sight. "Grandma?" I whispered. The hand stilled. I jiggled the handle, locked Lena. Her voice was faint, muffled. "Lena, baby, is that you?" My throat tightened. Yeah, it's me." A beat. Then, so quiet, I almost missed it. "Go to bed, sweetheart." I wanted to ask why she was down there. I wanted to scream for my mother to let her out. But Grandma's voice had that note in ith, the one that meant, don't ask. Not now. So I didn't. I went to bed, and the next morning, when I came downstairs, Mom was smiling. "Grandma's gone to live with Aunt Carol," she said, sliding a plate of toast toward me. "Isn't that nice? She'll have so much more space there." I stared at her. Aunt Carol lived 3 states away. Grandma had never mentioned leaving. "When is she coming back?" I asked. Mom's single quotes. A smile didn't move. "Oh, sweetheart. She's not." That was the first lie. There were so many more. Asterisk, asterisk, 10 years later, asterisk, asterisk. The knocking started on a Tuesday. 3 slow raps against the basement door. I froze. The laundry basket in my arms suddenly heavy. No, it had to be the house settling. The pipes, anything but knock, knock, knock. I set the basket down, walked to the door, pressed my palm against the wood. "Hello?" Silence, then a whisper, so faint it could have been the wind. Asterisk, "Lena." Asterisk. I stumbled back because I knew that voice. Even after 10 years, even though it was impossible, I knew Grandma was still down there and she was alive. The air in the house changed after that first knock. It wasn't just the dust motes floating in the afternoon sun or the way the floorboards creaked more than usual. Something had shifted. Like when you wake from a deep sleep and for one terrible moment you don't remember where you are. I stood frozen in the hallway, my fingers still tingling where they'd touched the basement door. That voice, that impossible, rasping voice that couldn't be there because Grandma was supposed to be long gone, living happily with Aunt Carol in another state. I pressed my ear against the door again, holding my breath so hard my lungs burned. Silence. Maybe. I'd imagined it. Maybe it was just the house settling, the pipes groaning like they always did. But then, Lena, clear as day, my name, her voice. My knees nearly gave out. I clutched the doorknob to steady myself, the metal cold against my sweating palm. "Grandma?" My voice came out in a squeak, barely audible. A long pause. Then, so quiet I had to press my whole body against the door to hear. "You've grown so tall." Tears blurred my vision. 10 years. 10 years since I'd last seen her face. 10 years of my mother's lies about how Grandma had chosen to leave. How she'd written letters that mysteriously never arrived. How she was happier somewhere else. I glanced over my shoulder at the empty hallway. Mom wouldn't be home from work for hours. Dad had left years ago. It was just me and the secret breathing behind this door. The key. There had to be a key. I tore through the kitchen drawers, my hands shaking as I shoved aside takeout menus and rubber bands. Nothing. The junk drawer by the phone, spare change, dead batteries, but no key. I checked the hook by the back door where we used to keep spare keys, but it was empty. Then I remembered Mom's jewelry box, the one she kept on her dresser and never let me touch. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my socks slipping on the polished wood. Her bedroom door was slightly ajar, the way she always left it. The jewelry box sat right where I remembered. A cheap wooden thing with a broken hinge. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. Costume jewelry tangled together, a few stray buttons, and there, a small brass key nestled in the corner. I snatched it up, the metal biting into my palm as I clenched my fist around it. Down the stairs, through the hall, my heart pounding so loud I was sure the neighbors could hear it. The key slid into the lock with a soft click. I hesitated, my hand on the knob. What if it wasn't her? What if it was something else? Something worse. The house seemed to hold its breath with me. I turned the knob. The door creaked open, revealing darkness so thick it looked solid. The smell hit me first, damp earth, stale air, and something faintly metallic. My stomach turned. Grandma? No answer. I fumbled for the light switch, my fingers brushing cobwebs. The single bulb flickered to life, casting jagged shadows down the wooden stairs. And then I saw her. At the bottom of the stairs, wrapped in a tattered quilt, sat a woman so thin I could see the shape of her skull beneath her skin. Her hair, once a rich silver, hung in greasy strands around her face, but her eyes, those were the same, warm and brown and crinkled at the corners. Even now, "Hi, baby," she whispered, and the sound shattered something inside me. I don't remember moving, but suddenly I was at the bottom of the stairs, my arms around her, feeling every bone in her back. She smelled like sweat and mildew, but underneath it was still the faintest trace of her lavender soap. "I'm sorry," I sobbed into her shoulder. I didn't know. Her hand, light as a leaf, patted my hair. My sweet girl, you were just a child. I pulled back to look at her, really look at her. The basement was barely a room, just concrete walls, a bare mattress on the floor, a bucket in the corner, a few empty water bottles scattered near the stairs. No windows, no way out. How? My voice broke. How long has she been doing this? Grandma's smile was sad. Since the day she told you I left, 10 years. 10 years in this damp, dark hole. My stomach heaved and I barely turned away in time to vomit onto the concrete floor. Grandma didn't flinch. "You should go," she said softly. "Before she comes home, I'm getting you out." The words tumbled out before I'd even thought them. "Right? Now we'll leave. We'll know." Her hand on my arm was surprisingly strong. "Not yet. She always knows." The certainty in her voice chilled me. "What do you mean?" Grandma's eyes darted to the ceiling as if she could see through the floors to where my mother would be standing. "She checks every day. If I'm gone, She didn't need to finish. We both knew what my mother was capable of. I wiped my face with my sleeve. "Then what do we do?" For the first time, something like hope flickered in Grandma's eyes. "Come back when it's safe. Bring food, water, and Lena, don't let her know you've been down here." Footsteps on the porch outside made us both freeze. Mom was home early. Grandma's face went pale. "Go now." I squeezed her hand once before, racing up the stairs, my pulse roaring in my ears. The key, I had to lock it again. I fumbled with it, nearly dropping it in my panic. The front door opened just as I clicked the lock back into place. "Lena." Mom's voice carried down the hall. "What are you doing?" I turned, forcing my face into calm. "Just getting the laundry." I gestured to the abandoned basket. "Mom?" Single quotes, eyes narrowed. She set her purse down slowly, never breaking eye contact. "Were you in the basement?" The lie came easily. "No. Why would I go down there?" She studied me for a long moment, then smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "No reason. It's just spiders and dust down there anyway." As she walked past me toward the kitchen, I saw it, the way her hand trailed along the basement door, checking the lock, the way her shoulders relaxed when she found it still secured. And in that moment, I understood 2 things. My mother had done this on purpose, and she would do it again. That night, lying in bed, I planned I'd need supplies, real food, not just the scraps Mom must have been throwing down there. A flashlight, maybe a book. Small things that wouldn't be missed. Soft knock on my bedroom door made me sit bolt upright. Mom stood in the doorway, backlit by the hall light. "I'm going to bed," she said. "Just wanted to say goodnight." "Goodnight," I managed. She didn't move. "You know I love you, right?" The question hung between us, heavy with something I couldn't name. "Of course," I whispered. She nodded, satisfied. Good. Lock your door if you want. There are bad people out there. When she was gone, I did exactly that. Then I pressed my ear to the wood, listening as her footsteps faded down the hall. A minute passed, then another, then the faintest creak of the basement door opening. I held my breath, counting the seconds until it closed again. 20-7. Every night, I realized with dawning horror, she checked every single night. I slid down the door to the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees. Outside, the wind howled against the house, rattling the windows in their frames. Somewhere below me, Grandma was listening to that same wind, counting the same seconds, waiting, and now, so was I. The next morning, I woke with a start, my sheets tangled around my legs. For one disorienting moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. The basement, Grandma's frail body, Mom's knowing eyes. Then sunlight hit the locked bedroom door, and reality came crashing back. I dressed quickly, my movements jerky with nervous energy. Downstairs, Mom was already in the kitchen, humming as she scrambled eggs. The normalcy of it made my skin crawl. "Sleep well?" she asked without turning around. Forced myself to take a seat at the table. "Yeah, fine." She slid a plate in front of me. The eggs were perfect, just how I liked them. Slightly runny with a sprinkle of cheese. I stared at them, my appetite gone. How many meals had she made for me while Grandma starved beneath our feet? "You're quiet this morning." Mom sipped her coffee, watching me over the rim. I stabbed a bite of eggs, just tired. A silence stretched between us, thick and dangerous. Then Mom's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. She glanced at it and sighed. "Work, emergency. I have to go in early." She grabbed her purse, pausing at the door. "You'll be okay here alone." The question was a test. I could hear it in her voice. "I'll probably just watch TV," I said, keeping my eyes on my plate. The door clicked shut behind her. I waited until I heard her car pull away before moving. First, the pantry. I grabbed a box of granola bars, a bag of apples, some bottled water things. That wouldn't spoil. My hands shook as I stuffed them into an old backpack. What else? A blanket. Medicine. I raided the bathroom cabinet for painkillers and antibiotic ointment at the basement door. I hesitated, listening for any sound. Nothing. The key turned smoothly in the lock this time. "Grandma." I called softly as I descended. She was sitting on the mattress, her back against the wall. The quilt from yesterday was folded neatly beside her. Her eyes lit up when she saw the backpack. "You came back," she breathed. I knelt beside her, unpacking my haul. "It's not much, but it's everything." Her fingers trembled as she reached for an apple. She took a small bite, closing her eyes as she chewed. Watching her savor something so simple cracked something open in my chest. While she ate, I looked around properly for the first time. The space was smaller than I remembered, maybe 10 by 12 feet. The mattress was stained and thin. No pillow. A plastic bucket in the corner served as a toilet. The walls were bare concrete, except for one section near the stairs where faint marks caught my eye. I moved closer. Notches. Hundreds of them carved into the concrete with something sharp. A tally. "One for each day," Grandma said quietly. I ran my fingers over the marks. 10 years worth of days scratched into a wall. My vision blurred. I kept track at first. She continued. Then I started forgetting. Some days blend together down here. The last notch was fresh, the concrete dust still clinging to it. My stomach turned. "Mom had been down here this morning. She checks on you every day." Grandma nodded, like clockwork. "Brings water, sometimes food if she's feeling generous." A bitter smile. "Wouldn't want me dying too soon. That would ruin her fun." I didn't want to ask, but the question clawed its way out anyway. "Why does she do this?" Grandma set the apple core aside, her hand steady now. "Your mother has always needed control. When she was little, she'd line her dolls up just so and scream if anyone moved them." She sighed. "After your grandfather died, something in her snapped. I was all she had left to punish." A noise upstairs made us both freeze. Footsteps. "Too heavy to be Mom's." "Your father?" Grandma asked, her face lighting up with hope. I shook my head. "He left years ago." The footsteps moved through the kitchen, then the living room, then a voice calling my name. "Lena." "You home, Jake?" "My boyfriend." I'd completely forgotten we'd made plans to study today. "I have to go," I whispered. "Already." Gathering the empty water bottles to refill. Grandma caught my wrist. "Bring him down here." "What?" "No, I can't. Trust me," she said, her grip surprisingly strong. "You'll need help." I hesitated, then nodded. Upstairs, Jake was peering into the kitchen, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "There you are," he said when he saw me. "I've been calling you. your phone off or we need to talk. I grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the basement door. His eyebrows shot up. Okay. Kinda dark for a makeout sesh, but just come on. The moment we reached the bottom step, Jake froze. What the hell? Grandma gave a small wave. Hello, Jacob. His mouth worked soundlessly for a moment before he turned to me. Is this ... Is that your grandma? The one who never left? I finished. Mom's been keeping her down here. Jake ran a hand through his hair, his eyes darting around the basement. This is insane. We have to call the police. Like, right now. No. Grandma and I said it at the same time. Why the hell not? Jake demanded. Because, I said quietly, we don't know what Mom will do if she gets cornered. We need proof. A plan. Jake looked like he wanted to argue, but one glance at Grandma's frail form changed his mind. Okay, what do you need? Over the next hour, we hatched a plan. Jake would bring his dad's old smartphone to record Mom's next visit. I'd keep gathering supplies. And in 3 days, when Mom had her overnight work conference, we'd get Grandma out. 3 days, I whispered to Grandma as we prepared to leave. She squeezed my hand. I've waited 10 years. I can wait 3 more days. Upstairs, Jake pulled me aside. Lena, are you sure about this? I mean, your mom? She's capable of some seriously messed up shit. I thought of the notches in the wall. The way Mom had smiled while serving me eggs this morning. The way she'd asked if I knew she loved me. I've never been more sure of anything, I said. Jake nodded, his jaw set. Then we'll get her out. We didn't notice the shadow moving past the kitchen window. Didn't hear the car pull in too early. The front door opened just as Jake was leaving. Mom stood in the doorway, her eyes flicking between us. Jacob, what a surprise! Jake forced a smile. Hey, Mrs. C, just dropping off some notes. Lena missed. Mom's gaze dropped to his empty hands. How thoughtful. A beat of silence. Then Jake shrugged, left them on the table. Anyway, I gotta run. See you at school? Lena. He brushed past Mom, who watched him go with an unreadable expression. When the door closed, she turned to me. You were in the basement again. It wasn't a question. My blood turned to ice. What? No, the slap came. Out of nowhere, sharp enough to snap my head to the side. I staggered back, my cheek burning. Mom's voice was eerily calm. Don't lie to me, Lena. I know every inch of this house. She stepped closer, her perfume suddenly cloying. What did you tell him? Nothing. We were just... She grabbed my chin, forcing me to meet her eyes. Listen carefully. You will not go down there again. You will not speak to Jacob about this. Or anyone. Her nails bit into my skin. Do you understand? I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. Mom released me, smoothing her blouse. Good. Now go to your room. We'll talk more when I get home. She left without another word, her heels clicking on the hardwood. The moment her car pulled away, I ran to the bathroom and vomited. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Our plan was blown. I splashed water on my face, staring at my reflection. The red mark on my cheek was already fading. In a few hours, there'd be no trace. Just like there was no trace of Grandma unless you knew where to look. That's when it hit me. Mom had spent 10 years hiding. Grandma in plain sight. Now it was my turn to hide someone. I grabbed my phone and texted Jake. Plans moved up tonight. Then I went to my room and began to pack. The text message burned in my pocket as I paced my bedroom. 3 hours until Mom would be home from work. 3 hours to get Grandma out before the house became a prison for both of us. My fingers trembled as I stuffed clothes into a duffel. Bag, jeans, sweaters, the emergency cash I'd been saving for college. A car door slammed outside. I froze, my pulse hammering in my throat. Too early. She couldn't be back already. The back door creaked open. Lena, Jake's voice. I nearly collapsed with relief. I met him in the kitchen where he was unloading supplies from his backpack protein bars. Bottled water, his dad's old smartphone. His eyes widened when he saw my cheek. Did she? Doesn't matter. I grabbed the phone. Did you bring the charger? He nodded, pulling it from his pocket. My dad's picking us up at 7. We've got about 2 hours to get your grandma ready. He hesitated. Lena, ... Are you sure you don't want to just call the police? I thought of Mom's nails digging into my chin, the cool precision in her voice. She'll have a story prepared, something that makes her look like the victim. We need proof first. The basement door creaked when I opened it. Below, a faint shuffling sound. Grandma, I called softly. No answer. Jake, and I exchanged a glance before descending. The bulb flickered as always, casting jagged shadows across the concrete. The mattress was empty. the quilt folded neatly at its foot. A rasping cough came from the far corner. Grandma sat slumped against the wall, her breathing shallow. Her skin had taken on a grayish tint since yesterday. Grandma, I rushed to her. Sighed, pressing a hand to her forehead. Burning up, her eyes fluttered open. Lena, is it time? Jake knelt beside us, his face pale. She needs a hospital. Grandma tried to sit up but collapsed back with a groan. Just need ... my pills. She gestured weakly toward the mattress. Beneath it, we found a small tin containing a handful of yellowed pills. Blood pressure medication, she wheezed, as I helped her swallow one with water. Your mother rationed them. Jake's jaw tightened. We're getting you out of here tonight. Grandma's eyes filled with tears. She reached for my hand, her skin papery thin. You'll have to carry me. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. We'll manage. Over the next hour, we prepared as best we could. Jake found an old wheelchair in the garage, probably left over from when Grandpa had his stroke. The tires were flat, but it would have to do. I packed Grandma's few belongings, the quilt, a tattered photo of Grandpa, the tin of pills. At 6:30, Grandma motioned me closer. There's something you should know, she whispered. About your mother. I braced myself. She wasn't always like this. Grandma's voice was barely audible. After your grandfather died, something ... broke in her. The doctors called it a psychotic break, but I knew it was grief turned inside out. She coughed, her whole body shaking with the effort. She needs help, Lena, not punishment. I thought of the notches on the wall. The years of darkness. She needs to pay for what she did. Grandma's hand found mine. Vengeance won't heal you, sweetheart. A car pulled into the driveway. Jake peered out the small basement window. It's my dad. Time seemed to speed up then. Jake carried Grandma up the stairs while I steadied the wheelchair. She weighed almost nothing, all bones and loose skin. Getting her into the chair took all three of us, and by the end, Grandma was panting with exertion. Go, she wheezed, before she comes back. Jake's dad, a quiet man with kind eyes, took one look at Grandma and immediately helped lift her into the car. We'll take her straight to County General. He said, you kids follow when you can. As their taillights disappeared down the street, Jake and I hurried back inside to grab my bags. That's when I heard it, the familiar rumble of Mom's car turning onto our street. She's early, I gasped. Jake grabbed my arm, back door. Now, we nearly made it. The front door swung open just as we reached the kitchen. Mom stood silhouetted in the doorway, her work bag dangling from one hand. Her eyes flicked from my duffel bag to Jake's panicked expression. Going somewhere. Her voice was dangerously calm. Jake stepped between us. Mrs. C, listen. Mom moved faster than I'd ever seen. One moment she was in the doorway. The next she had Jake pinned against the refrigerator, her forearm pressed to his throat. Mom, I screamed. She didn't even glance at me. Did you think I wouldn't notice? She hissed at Jake. The missing food, the unlocked basement door. Her grip tightened. Where is she? Jake's face turned red as he struggled to breathe. I grabbed the nearest thing, a cast iron skillet from the stove, and swung. The impact made a sickening thud against Mom's temple. She crumpled without a sound, her body hitting the linoleum with a dull thump. For one terrible second, Jake and I just stared at her motionless form. Is she? Jake began. I dropped to my knees, pressing 2 fingers to Mom's neck. A steady pulse, just unconscious. We worked quickly after that. Jake tied Mom's hands with dish towels while I grabbed the smartphone from my pocket and recorded everything in the basement. The notches on the wall, Mom's limp form on the kitchen floor. Then we ran. The police arrived at Jake's house 2 hours later, after we'd given our statements. They found Mom sitting calmly in the living room when they went to arrest her, a blood-stained towel pressed to her head. She's confused, Mom told them sweetly. My mother passed away years ago. Lena's been unwell since her father left. Then I played the recording. The look on Mom's face when she realized she'd lost, that was almost worth the 10 years of lies. Almost at the hospital. Grandma was already doing better. Color had returned to her cheeks, and an IV drip replenished fluids she'd been denied for years. When the police came to take her statement, she told them everything. The abuse, the imprisonment, the calculated cruelty. But when they asked if she wanted to press charges, Grandma hesitated. She looked at me, her eyes full of sorrow. Yes, I answered for her, for both of us. As they wheeled Grandma away for more tests, Jake squeezed my hand. It's over. I thought of the house standing empty, of Mom in a jail cell, of all the years we could never get back. No, I said quietly. It's just beginning. That night, as I sat by Grandma's hospital bed watching her sleep, I noticed something I hadn't before. The way her fingers twitched, like she was counting. The way her breath hitched every time a nurse walked in unexpectedly. The way she'd wake up screaming from nightmares no one else could see. 10 years in the dark leaves marks no hospital can erase. And as I reached over to smooth her hair, I realized some prisons don't have bars. Some doors lock from the inside. And the hardest escape isn't through a basement door, but from the shadows in your own mind. The fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway buzzed like angry insects as I slumped in the plastic chair outside Grandma's room. 3 days had passed since we'd carried her up those basement stairs, but the smell of damp concrete still clung to my dreams. My phone buzzed. Jake again. Asterisk, you okay? Need anything? Asterisk, I stared at the message until the screen went dark. How did you answer that? No, I wasn't. Okay, yes, I needed everything. The weight of the past week pressed down on my chest until I could barely breathe. Inside the room, Grandma murmured in her sleep. The doctors said her physical recovery would take months. Malnutrition, severe vitamin deficiencies, early-stage osteoporosis from lack of sunlight. The psychological evaluation, well, they didn't give timelines for that. A shadow fell across my lap. Miss Carter, a police officer stood over me, his hat tucked under one arm. We need to discuss your living arrangements. I stiffened. What? About them. With your mother in custody and your grandmother hospitalized, ... double quotes. He shifted uncomfortably. Child Protective Services will need to place you temporarily. I'm 17. My voice came out sharper than I intended. 18 in 3 months? I don't need placing. The officer sighed. Be that as it may, Lena stays with me. We both turned. Grandma stood in the doorway, gripping her for pole like a lifeline. The hospital gown swallowed her frail frame, but her eyes were clear. Mrs. Carter, the officer began. Given your condition, my condition, Grandma interrupted softly, is better than it was in that basement, and my granddaughter isn't going anywhere. Something in her tone made the officer back down. He muttered something about checking with CPS and hurried away. Grandma sank into the chair beside me, her breath coming in short puffs. You should be at school, she said after a moment. A laugh bubbled up in my throat, harsh and unexpected. Seriously, after everything. She took my hand, especially after everything. Her fingers felt different already. Warmer, stronger. Life keeps moving. Sweetheart, even when we want it to stop. The hallway clock ticked loudly. Somewhere down the hall, a patient cried out in pain. What happens now? I asked quietly. Grandma was silent for a long time. Then, we go home. Home? The word didn't mean what it used to. The house smelled wrong when we finally returned, like bleach and emptiness. Jake and his father had cleaned as best they could, scrubbing away a decade of neglect from the basement. But the air still tasted stale. Grandma paused in the foyer, her knuckles white on the walker the hospital had provided. Her gaze traveled over the familiar furniture, the family photos on the walls, all conspicuously missing one person. Would you like me to stay? Jake asked from the doorway. I glanced at Grandma, who shook her head minutely. We'll be okay, I told him. When the door closed behind him, the silence rushed in like floodwater. Grandma took a shaky breath. Show me. I didn't need to ask what she meant. The basement stairs groaned under our combined weight as we descended slowly. Grandma leaning heavily on the railing. The single bulb still flickered. But now sunlight streamed through a newly installed window. Jake's father's work, Grandma's walker, clattered against the concrete as she stepped off the final stair. Her eyes swept over the space, the mattress gone. The walls freshly painted, but the notches were still there. I watched as she reached out, her fingertips brushing the deepest grooves. 3,652 days, she whispered. The number punched through me. 10 years. Every morning she'd woken in this tomb. Every night she'd listened to our footsteps overhead. I expected tears, screaming, something. Instead, Grandma straightened her shoulders and turned to me. Help me up the stairs, please. Back in the kitchen, she sank into a chair, her face pale with exertion. We'll need to sell the house. The statement caught me off guard. What? Because, she said calmly, I can't live with those numbers in the walls, and you shouldn't have to either. The truth of it settled over me. I'd imagined returning here as some kind of victory. Look how far we've come. Look what we survived. But survivors don't linger in graves. Where would we go? Grandma smiled then. The first real smile I'd seen since the hospital. Anywhere we want. That night, as I lay in my childhood bed for what I knew would be the last time, My phone buzzed with a notification. A news article. Asterisk local woman charged with false imprisonment, elder abuse. Asterisk mom's booking photos stared back at me. Her hair perfectly styled, her makeup untouched. Even in disgrace, she looked put together. In control. I closed the article without reading it. Down the hall, Grandma's soft snores drifted through the half-open door. I crept to her doorway, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. Alive. Free. The floorboard creaked as I shifted my weight. Grandma's eyes flew open, her body tensing like a cornered animal. Then she saw me, and the fear melted away. Bad dream? She asked. I shook my head, just checking. She patted the empty side of the bed. I climbed in beside her like I had as a child after thunderstorms. Her hand found mine in the dark. She won't win, Grandma whispered. Not anymore. Outside, the wind rattled the branches against the window. Somewhere in the distance, a car engine turned over. Life moving on. I squeezed her fingers. I know. And for the first time in 10 years, I believed it. The realtor's heels clicked across the hardwood as she circled the living room, her perfume leaving a floral trail in the air. With some updates, this could really shine, she said, pausing to examine a water stain on the ceiling. Grandma sat stiffly on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. We're not interested in updates. Just selling. I watched from the kitchen doorway, gnawing at my thumbnail. 3 weeks since we'd freed Grandma from the basement. 2 weeks since Mom's bail. Hearing denied, thanks to the mountain of evidence against her. The house should have felt lighter without her presence, but instead it felt like we were living inside a held breath. The realtor, Miss Kowalski, flipped through her notepad. Given the circumstances, full disclosure laws require we mention the criminal history associated with the property. Grandma's jaw tightened. We're aware. Ms. Kowalski softened. I'm sorry, that came out wrong. I just meant it might affect the timeline. We'll take whatever we can get. I cut in. The realtor nodded, scribbling something down. I'll have the paperwork drawn up by Monday. In the meantime, she hesitated, glancing toward the basement. Door, would you like me to arrange for someone to clean down there? Grandma stood abruptly, her walker scraping against the floor. No, that's our business. After the realtor left, Grandma sank back onto the couch with a wince. The doctors had warned us recovery wouldn't be linear, good days and bad days. Today was clearly the latter. You okay? I asked. She waved me off. Just tired. That woman talked more in 30 minutes than I did in 10 years. The joke fell flat, hanging between us like the dust motes in the afternoon light. I sat beside her. We don't have to do this. We could. Yes, we do. Grandma turned to me, her eyes clearer than they'd been in weeks. This house is a crime scene. Lena, we're just the only ones who see the bloodstains. A car door slammed outside, through the window. I saw Jake bounding up the walkway, 2 paper bags in hand. Dinner delivery, he called as he let himself in. The smell of garlic and melted cheese cut through the tension. Jake set the bags on the coffee table, his smile faltering when he took in our expressions. Bad time. Grandma patted his arm. Perfect timing. Actually, what did you bring us? Lasagna from Mario's, and he pulled a DVD case from his back pocket. I thought maybe we could have a movie night. Take your minds off things. The simple kindness of it made my throat tight. I busied myself with plates to hide the sudden burn in my eyes. Jake followed me into the kitchen. How bad was it? He asked quietly. I glanced at Grandma, who was carefully examining the DVD case. She wants to burn the place down, I muttered. I'm starting to think she's right. Jake's hand found mine, warm and steady. Whatever you need. My dad's got plenty of gasoline. The joke startled a laugh out of me, too loud, too sharp. Grandma looked up, her expression unreadable. We ate on the couch, the 3 of us squeezed together with plates balanced on our laps. Jake had brought some old comedy, something silly and forgettable. Halfway through, I realized Grandma wasn't laughing. Then I noticed the tears streaming silently down her face. Grandma? She didn't seem to hear me. Her eyes were fixed on the screen, but seeing something else entirely. We used to watch movies like this, she whispered. Before. Your mother would beg to stay up past her bedtime. Jake quietly hit pause. Grandma wiped her cheeks with a trembling hand. I keep waiting to hate her. It would be easier if I could just hate her. I didn't know what to say. The anger came easily to me, white-hot and righteous. But Grandma had loved Mom first, loved her longest. That kind of love doesn't disappear, no matter how deep you bury it. Jake cleared his throat. My mom, before she left, she WASN single quotes T. Well, he chose his words carefully. Sometimes people break in ways that can't be fixed. It's not about who loved them enough, Grandma studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You're a good boy, Jacob. Too smart for your own good. The movie forgotten. We sat in the quiet dark, the only sound, the hum of the refrigerator, and the occasional creak of the house settling. It was Jake who finally broke the silence. What will you do after? You know, when the house sells. Grandma and I exchanged a glance. We hadn't talked about it, not really. Somewhere warm, she said, with windows that actually open. Florida, I suggested. God, no. Grandma made a face. Alligators and retirees. Arizona, maybe. New house. Jake mused. New start. Grandma smiled, didn't reach her eyes. Something like that. Later, after Jake left and Grandma went to bed, I found myself standing at the top of the basement stairs. The door was open. We'd stopped locking it, stopped pretending it was just storage space that the notches called to me. I descended slowly, each step creaking under my weight. The new window let in just enough moonlight to see by. 3,652 marks. I trailed my fingers over them, counting silently. At the very bottom. Fresh wood showed where Jake's father had replaced part of the wall. No notches there. No history. I pulled the pocket knife from my jeans, the one Jake had given me for protection, and pressed the blade to the new wood. One shallow cut, then another. When I climbed back upstairs, my phone was buzzing. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Lena. Mom's voice sent ice down my spine. You haven't visited. The walls seemed to close in around me. You're not allowed to call me. A soft laugh. Prison rules don't apply to collect calls, sweetheart. How's Grandma? Enjoying her freedom. I gripped the phone so tight the plastic creaked. What do you want? Just to talk? A mother deserves that much, doesn't she? Her tone shifted, turning wheedling. They're saying awful things about me, Lena. That I'm sick. That I belong in a psychiatric facility instead of prison. I closed my eyes. Maybe you do. Silence. Then, so quiet I almost missed it. You put those marks on the wall, didn't you? My breath caught. What? The notches. Too even. Too perfect. She could never have kept count that well. Mom's voice took on a strange, almost admiring quality. Clever girl, just like me. The words hit like a physical blow. I'd been so careful, so sure the notches would prove her cruelty. Instead, she'd twisted them into proof of mine. I didn't. Of course you did, Mom crooned. Because you understand, deep down, some people are burdens, Lena. Some people need to be ... managed. I hung up, my hands shaking. The phone rang again immediately. I threw it across the room, where it hit the wall with a satisfying crack. From down the hall, Grandma called sleepily. Everything okay? I forced my voice steady. Fine, just dropped something. The lie tasted familiar. I picked up the broken phone, staring at the spider-webbed screen. One crack ran straight through Mom's contact photo. Her face bisected, half-smile severed from half-smile. In the basement, 2 fresh notches gleamed in the moonlight. I hadn't carved them today, but I would. The morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen window felt like a lie. I sat at the table, clutching a mug of coffee that had long gone cold, staring at the shattered phone on the counter. The call from Mom had left a stain on everything, seeping into the cracks of our fragile new normal. Grandma shuffled into the kitchen, her walker scraping against the tile. She took one look at me and sighed. She called, didn't she? I didn't bother asking how she knew. Grandma had developed an almost supernatural sense for trouble these past few weeks. Collect call from the detention center, I muttered. She wants to talk. Grandma filled her own coffee cup with hands that shook only slightly now. What did she say? The words stuck in my throat. You're just like me. I couldn't tell Grandma that. Couldn't bear to see the doubt in her eyes. The usual, I lied. That she's innocent. That we misunderstood. Grandma sipped her coffee, her gaze sharp over the rim of the mug. You know that's not true, right? Do I? The question burst out before I could stop it. I mean, what? If she's sick? What if she really couldn't help it? Grandma set her cup down with deliberate care. Mental illness explains behavior, Lena. It doesn't excuse it. She reached across the table, her papery skin warm against mine. 10 years. That's not an episode. That's a choice. The doorbell rang, saving me from having to respond. Jake stood on the porch, holding a brand new phone box. Figured you might need this, he said, eyeing the broken device on the counter. I let him in, my chest tight with gratitude. You didn't have to, please. Your mom's a nightmare, but Verizon's worse. He grinned, but it faded when he saw my face. That bad, huh? Grandma pushed back from the table. I'll let you two talk. I've got a date with the realtor and some paperwork. She paused beside Jake, squeezing his shoulder. Thank you for everything. When she was gone, Jake said about transferring my data to the new phone. So what did she really say? He asked without looking up. I picked at a scratch on the table that I'm like her, that I made the notches in the basement to frame her. Jake's head snapped up. That's bullshit and you know it. Do I? I stood abruptly, pacing the small kitchen. What if part of me wanted revenge? What if I stopped? Jake caught my wrist, pulling me to a halt. Listen to me. You didn't lock your grandma in a basement for a decade. You got her out. That's the difference between you and your mom? The certainty in his voice should have comforted me. Instead, it made me feel like a fraud, because he didn't know about the 2 new notches I'd carved last night. Didn't know how good the knife had felt in my hand. I changed the subject. Grandma wants to move to Arizona. Jake's thumb traced circles on my wrist. Are you going with her? The question hung between us. I'd been so focused on surviving each day that the future felt like some distant country. I don't know, I admitted. What's left for me here? His smile was small but real. Me. I kissed him then, pouring all my fear and gratitude into it. His lips were warm and familiar, an anchor in the storm. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Okay? The new phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unknown number. Missed you at visitation today. I dropped the phone like it had burned me. How? It's a new number. Jake scooped up the device, his face darkening. She must have someone on the outside helping her. He blocked the number with quick, angry taps. This is harassment. We should tell the lawyer. I shook my head, a cold certainty settling over me. No, she wants a reaction. I'm not giving her one. But later, when Jake left for work and the house was quiet again, I found myself standing at the basement door. The notches called to me, a siren song of rage and grief. The knife was in my hand before I'd made the decision. Down the stairs, each step creaking like a warning. The basement smelled less like damp earth now, more like fresh paint and sawdust. I knelt before the wall, running my fingers over the last 2 marks, the ones I'd made. Then I pressed the blade to the wood and carved a 3rd, and a 4th, and a 5th. The knife slipped, nicking my thumb. A bead of blood welled up, bright against my skin. I watched it drip onto the concrete, joining the invisible stains already there. Footsteps on the stairs made me freeze. Grandma stood halfway down, her face unreadable in the dim light. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she descended the remaining steps slowly, her walker clicking against the concrete. She stopped beside me, gazing at the fresh marks. I used to count the cracks in the ceiling, she said quietly. Every night before bed, 1,324. I swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. Yes, you should have. She took the knife from my trembling hand. Anger needs somewhere to go, Lena. Better the wall than your heart. She pressed the blade into the wood, adding a 6th notch beside mine. Then she handed the knife back. Just don't let her turn you into something you're not. I looked at the marks, hers and mine, side by side. Proof that we'd survived. That we were still fighting. Grandma kissed the top of my head. Come on, let's go pack. Upstairs, the realtor's paperwork waited on the kitchen table. The new phone buzzed again, but this time I didn't flinch. Somewhere in Arizona, there was a house. Without basement stairs. Without notches in the walls. And soon, very soon, we'd be in it. The moving truck sat in the driveway like a promise, its empty bed waiting to be filled with the fragments of our lives. I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, surveying the bare walls and stacked boxes. 18 years reduced to cardboard and packing tape. Grandma shuffled up behind me, leaning heavily on her cane now instead of the walker. You sure you don't want to take the bed frame? I shook my head. Let the new owners deal with it. The house had sold faster than we'd expected. Some young couple eager for a fixer-upper with character. They'd oot and OC'd over the original hardwood, completely missing the way Grandma's grip tightened on my arm when we passed the basement door. Jake appeared in the hallway, his arms full of rolled-up posters. Last of the bedroom stuff, he announced, dropping them into a box marked Lena's crap. Grandma patted his cheek. Such a helpful boy. Remind me to adopt you before we leave. Jake grinned, but his eyes found mine full of unasked questions. We hadn't talked about what happened after Arizona, about whether there would be an us across state lines. The doorbell rang. All 3 of us froze. No one we knew would ring the bell. Jake just walked in, and the realtor had already said her goodbyes. Grandma recovered first, probably the movers with questions. But when I opened the door, a uniformed officer stood on the porch. My stomach dropped. Lena Carter. I nodded, bracing for bad news. Had Mom done something? Escaped? The officer held out an envelope. Court summons. You're required to testify at your mother's trial next month. Grandma appeared at my shoulder. She'll be in Arizona by then. The officer shrugged. The DA can arrange for a video testimony if needed. He tipped his hat and left his boots crunching on the gravel driveway. I stared at the envelope, my name typed neatly on the label. The final tether to this place. To her dot, Jake took it from my shaking hands. We don't have to open it now. But Grandma reached out. Yes, we do. Inside were 2 subpoenas, one for me, one for Grandma, along with a letter from the district attorney. I scanned it quickly, my pulse pounding in my ears. They're adding attempted murder charges, I whispered. Because of the medication rationing, Grandma's face went very still. She took the papers and read them herself, her lips moving silently. When she looked up, her eyes were wet. Good, that single word held a lifetime of pain. Jake squeezed my hand. I'll come with you to the trial. I mean, however it happens. Grandma folded the papers neatly and tucked them into her purse. We'll face it together, one last time. The movers arrived then, breaking the moment with their cheerful efficiency. We watched as they loaded our belongings, Grandma's quilts, my books, the few pieces of furniture we'd decided to keep into the truck. When they got to the basement door, I stepped forward. We'll handle that one. The lead mover shrugged. Sure thing, miss. Once they were outside, the 3 of us stood at the top of the stairs, looking down into the gloom. The notches were still there, 3,658 now. Our additions would stay behind. Silent witnesses to the truth. Grandma surprised me by starting down first, her cane tapping firmly on each step. Jake and I followed, our footsteps echoing in the empty space. Sunlight streamed through the new window, illuminating the wall where we'd made our marks. Grandma reached out, running her fingers over the grooves one last time. Goodbye, old friend, she murmured. Then she turned and climbed back up without looking back. Jake and I lingered for a moment longer. You okay? He asked. I studied the wall, remembering the feel of the knife in my hand, the release of each carved line. I will be upstairs. Grandma was already in the passenger seat of our rented SUV, her seatbelt fastened, her gaze fixed on the road ahead. The movers were pulling away, our entire lives packed neatly into 18 feet of truck. Jake, help me with the last box, the one containing the few photos we'd kept, the ones without Mom in them. As he slid it into the back seat, he hesitated. So this is it. I looked at the house, its windows dark and empty, at Grandma, already dreaming of Arizona sunshine, at Jake, who had stood by me through everything. No, I said, taking his hand. This is the beginning. The engine started with a purr. As we pulled away, I didn't look back. The notches would stay, the memories would fade, and we would finally be free. The road stretched out before us, long and bright and full of promise. Somewhere along it, our new life was waiting. Grandma reached over and squeezed my knee. Next stop, sunshine. I smiled and pressed the gas stop behind us. The house grew smaller in the rearview mirror, until it disappeared completely. Just like a bad dream, just like a closed door, just like the past. And a head-only light.